Welcome to This Week in the SFL. It's Season 21, Week 12 edition. Yeah, that's exactly what was going on behind the scenes. Hacker had to get that mustache combed. I had to get whatever this is shaved to make sure that people didn't call me bad names. But Hacker, welcome back to the show. We're getting down to the nitty-gritty of this season, and couldn't be more excited to break down the week that was with you. How you doing?
Doing great. Excited to be here. A lot of good games this weekend, and the playoff picture starting to become a little more clear, but teams still fighting for their chance, trying to cling on to any hope that they have. So it'd be great to recap this week. Always great to see you.
Yeah, and, right now the championship contenders are starting to emerge a little bit. We're starting to see a little bit of separation there at the top, but who knows? Upsets could be aplenty in these playoffs. It's all going to be about matchups. It's all going to be about how everybody shakes out. Week 12, headlined by Arizona and Fort Worth, dominating poor defenses. Florida played another nail-biter, and Houston lost another heartbreaker. But first, we start in South Carolina, where the Charleston Predators hosted the Motor City V8s, and up 10-0. Motor City's defense showed up. The big man, Holford, with the interception all the way down to the 18-yard line. Beautiful interception for the V8s, and they would punch it in soon after, just before the half. Michael Brown hits Noe Terrasis for the score. So 10-7 Charleston with a 3-point lead. But this game would really start getting frisky later on. At the end of the half, field goal off the left post. No good. Keep that in mind. Caleb Richards' tough night. We go into the half at 10-7. Motor City gets the ball to start the third. 3rd and 5, 4 minutes in. Michael Brown sends a receiver in motion, and Brown is going to connect. That is Gusters. Julian Gusters with the touchdown. Motor City getting everybody involved. That's the offense they wanted to see at the start of the season. 14-10 now. This pass, beautiful to Brian Murphy, the tight end, down inside the 5-yard line just before the end of the third quarter. Charleston would punch it in, Hack, and then things got nutty, but this was a good one from start to finish.
Yeah, and that's what I would expect in a game like this. Both of these teams, I think you could define them as gritty, and they're going to be resourceful in how they attack you, and I think both teams put that on display in this ballgame.
Michael Brown, resourceful there, shakes off a potential sack, and Noe Terrasis has his second touchdown of the night, and Motor City retakes the lead 21-17, but Charleston would not be denied. John Lakeman down the field. Romeo June, first catch of the game and second of the season. Under 5 minutes to go. Charleston mixing things up down the field at the 1-yard line. Flip out Nick Hoagland. Great block. Touchdown Charleston. 3:06 left. 24-21. The Predators have the lead over the V8s. But Motor City isn't done either. Fans loving it at Robert Smalls Memorial. Michael Brown to Shane Kaufman. Caught it, turned the corner, touchdown. 28-24, 2:25 to go in the fourth. But Charleston ain't done yet either. This pass caught by Davius 3 with 50 seconds to go. You notice they're not calling timeouts. They had 2 left. People criticizing, oh, they're going too slow, Well, this strategy ended up paying off and got Charleston a huge W. Honus Adobe down to the 9-yard line. They take a timeout there. That's their last. So they got to get this ball in the end zone now. Down 4. Charleston. John Lakeman. Got it. Murphy, the tight end, touchdown. Charleston retakes the lead 31-28. Charleston by 3. Murphy raising the sky. 6 seconds left. Michael Brown, deep Hail Mary to get into field goal range, caught, and the knee's down with 1 second left, which means Caleb Richards gets a chance to redeem himself for the tying field goal to send Motor City and Charleston into overtime. This is what it all counted for. 50-yard field goal. It's accurate. It's short. And Charleston moves to 5-5. Devastating for the V8s, Hack.
You had just a hair's amount of time, and you got a miracle throw in, and then you gave your kicker a chance, and to come up short like that, I know that was a gut punch moment for the V8s that had to hurt, but I want to go back to Lakeman there on that drive, 225. You get your team down there, you have to go through all your timeouts, and then you're able to make a big throw and give your team the lead back. I mean, that's a lot of progress for your quarterback, and that's a big time moment. Something that maybe that quarterback can look back on as a growing moment.
Both quarterbacks are big time, and Terrell Sutherland was liking it for Charleston. He caught up with Ashley Jackson on PGI.
Welcome back to PGI, where I am joined with a good friend of mine, Mr. Terrell Sutherland. He is GM for the Charleston Predators that just came off a fantastic win. Like, brother, I just watched the highlights from that game. And when, you contacted me, it was like, man, my heart, I was like, I see why. You guys made that happen. So how are you doing now? You breathing okay?
Definitely breathing okay. Is back in the lab. It's on with the show, AJ. It's on with the show. On to next week.
Amen. Indeed. So let's talk about it a little bit. So, um, final minutes of the game, Murphy comes up with a beautiful touchdown, but still leaves time on the clock for Motor City to make a move. What is going through your mind at that moment? Because it was close.
It was. I mean, the number one thing in my mind was because I remember as soon as we finished our offensive drive, in a separate screen, I went straight to Motor City's roster and I looked at their kicker's attributes to see what are the likelihood of him making a long range field goal. Like as the drive is happening, I'm scrolling down the build list trying to think of what we need to do on the defense to make sure we walk out of there with a W.
Well, you did because it was just that close, man. But you guys wound up making the victory 31-28. And that should have been game of the week, in my opinion, the way how everything worked out, definitely. But next opponent is Carolina. And I'm curious to know, since you guys are 5-5, y'all in the same division, what do you think the recipe for success will be to win against Carolina and then, be able to surpass them a little bit in the standings?
The thing with the lucky way that our schedule turned out, along with Motor City, DC, these are in particularly very run dominant teams. They will like to bully you just straight up with their offensive line and Ike McBride. And ultimately, it'll be, in a way, somewhat similar to the last time we faced them. Limit Ike McBride and force Matt South to basically have a near career game for them to walk out of there.
Hey, and if anybody can push them to the limit, Charleston can. So good luck to y'all next week and give them a good show.
We will, and just wait for the social media team. We got some things ready to show.
I'm sure, and they gonna fire back. Y'all probably want to brew in a really good rivalry over there too. All right, thanks, Terrell. Appreciate your time, brother.
No problem.
All right, back to you in the booth.
Thank you, Ashley. More on Charleston in a minute. Their opponent next week is Carolina, and they were in Canton. Well, they were in Canton to take on the Canton Classics. Robert Johnson, the best player on the field in this one. It wasn't even close. Get out of the way, even in pink. He is blasting his way into the end zone for the score, 10-0. Canton takes the lead late in the first quarter. A little bit of a blip in the radar here as Carolina was really struggling offensively in this one, but first, Robert Johnson again on the touchdown. He's just been a beast.
Yeah, and Robert Johnson's he's absolutely the cog in the machine for the Classics. I mean, he's what makes them go, whenever he's moving the chains and getting those carries, it's just doing all the work for the Canton Classics.
Yeah, the defense for Canton not doing much work there. Start of the second quarter, Hattori Hanzo gets the easiest touchdown he'll ever have. Got to clean that up, and that kept Carolina in the game. But at the end of the day, Canton was just balling. Scar Patterson hasn't been getting a lot of love, neither of these receivers this season, but they had some of their best performances of the year. Up 10-7 still. Robert Johnson with a dirty stiff arm, not once but twice, and he finds the pylon for the score, and Canton goes back up by 10, 17-7, no harm, no foul. Now 3rd and 7 here for Carolina at the 10-yard line, and Connor Darien with the pick, his 3rd interception in the last 2 weeks, and then a face mask penalty gave Canton 15 more yards after that. Al Dillapre Sr. wide open, catches it off of his toes, and moves the chains now in the 3rd quarter with Canton up 24-7. A fast-moving game and a fast-moving dominant performance. Even Scar Patterson's getting 10 yards right up the middle, Hack. You can't do that as a defense.
Yeah, and you're making it too easy whenever Canton's got that big of a lead and you're just giving up rushing yards right up the middle. You're going to make it an easy day for the opposing offense and a long day for your defense.
So 31-7, 4 minutes to go in this one, and you think, well, Carolina's totally out of it. Well, Matt South hits Vince DeSantis for the score, made it 31-14, and then Matt South hits Riley Quintero after a Canton field goal to make it 34-21. So a minute 23 to go in the 4th quarter, and oh my gosh, you got to catch it. Carolina recovers the onside kick, and you're thinking, well, they got no timeouts left, but you just never know in the SFL. Look, they've made it all the way down to the red zone, and Evan Lacey, are you kidding me? One-handed hack behind his back. That was some magician-type stuff to seal it.
Yeah, that's just what they call ball hawk. Evan Lacey put on a great display there. Ball behind his head, he just put a hand out there, and it was like a magnet right to his glove. Whoop! But great highlight reel. That's something you want to put and post on the wall. Make it a poster and put it on your wall.
Canton wins. They improved to 7-4. They got D.C. next week. Speaking of D.C., they hosted Florida. This one was a nail-biter from start to finish. Florida gets a touchdown from Ron Cochran to E.J. Minson. Puts Florida up 10-0, but fumble as they tried to pitch it out to Doyle, and he is slammed down. 45-on-45 crime there. Britton with the forced fumble, and Declan O'Rourke with the recovery, and all of a sudden, D.C.'s back in this ball game. Crowd loves it. 10-10 now. Xavier Rowe the third, unblocked off the edge on the corner blitz, roll outside. A loss of 7. DC was hitting out there just before the end of the half. Shabazz Synergy low and away. That's pretty to Josh Gill. And look at that. DC scores 17 of the last 20 points to end the half. Makes it 17-13. Now we fast forward late in the 3rd quarter, and Marcus Agrippa's going to flip the field here for the Florida Storm. Look at this booming punt. Hang time of 4.5. Fumble on the return, and Florida scoops it up at the 10-yard line. What a disastrous play there for the Dragons. Ron Cochran would take advantage as he drops to throw, finds Minson again. Touchdown, 20-17 Florida, just like that.
Yeah, and that's what you expect out of Cochran is just efficiency. And when your defense and special teams can show up for your team, Ron Cochran's going to do the rest. I mean, this is just what he's known for. He'll come out and he'll take control of the game if you let him.
Cochran over to Stephen Bush, and then Ron Cochran into the end zone, caught by Bush. So again, Florida's back up by 10, and all's well that ends well for the Storm, right? 27-17, 6:36 to go. Next offensive play of this game. Shabazz Synergy. Someone's going to cover Josh Gill. Someone forgot. Josh Gill in a foot race. Down to the 20, down to the 10. Look at the hustle. Adrian Blaine wraps up Gill at the 2-yard line, but DC would punch it in a couple plays later. In fact, the next play, Kevin Say takes the handoff right side, goes untouched. So just like that, DC erases Florida's momentum. It's now 27-24, 6 minutes to go. Flash forward to the final minute of the game. 24 seconds left. DC is out of timeouts. They have to get into field goal range and give their field goal team enough time to get on the field and make the kick. Synergy going down the field. That pass is caught, and a pass interference would stop the clock with 19 seconds left. Hack, you've been here before. You remember that game that Fort Worth got into field goal range, didn't have enough time to kick the field goal. The clock ran out. You lost the game. DC had to get out of bounds on the next play to save face. Lauren Prococo dropped the first down pass that would have got him into field goal range. Now Synergy tries her one more time, but it's in the middle of the field, and there's only 10 seconds left, and there's just not enough time to get everybody situated and set to get the kicking team on, and Florida gets the win, 27-24. No chance for Potty to tie the game. The Dragons lose another heartbreaker and fall to 5-5. Centopy in the chat. I believe I said that correctly. You guys deserve more recognition. Appreciate the compliment. Jack Wall, $2 super chat. Hacker looks like a vegan Tom Selleck. Haven't you heard that one before? I think even Jack acknowledged that his routine is a little light tonight.
Hey, but any comparison to Tom Selleck is welcome in my book, so keep on coming.
That's what my mother-in-law would say. Okay, so back to Charleston just for a moment. 31-28, they beat Motor City. Motor City down on their luck. They lose a heartbreaker, but that was the best they've looked maybe all season. They dropped to 4-7. Charleston dominates the game, 25 first downs to 12 for Motor City in terms of time of possession. Key stat here is that Charleston got 7 points off of the one Motor City turnover. Both teams kept the game pretty clean, but Charleston gets the win and they move to 5-5. So what do you think about this team, Hack? Here's a breakdown of Charleston with 2 games left to go in the season. They're 4-1 in their last 5 games, but they're 0-3 against the top 8 in the league right now. Their remaining games are against a pair of 5-5 teams, Carolina and DC, 2 teams they've already beaten. What's your what's the feeling on Charleston that you have right now?
Well, I didn't know that they were 4-1 in their last 5, so that's a little shocking to me. But I would say that being 5-5, you're hot at the right time. I think that if any team is the team you need to be looking out for right now, it might be Charleston. I think that if they've already beaten both Carolina and DC, those are 2 teams that are right now in the playoff picture. And so if they've beaten both of them, I mean, you have to respect that. 0-3 against top 8 teams. I mean, how many teams can really say they have a really nice record against those teams that aren't in the top 8 already, right? So it's just kind of one of those, it doesn't move the needle very much for me there. So I would say Charleston's got a really good chance here. Even if they split with Carolina and DC in some way, I could see them, creeping into a wild card spot for sure.
And to be fair to the Dragons, Charleston beat DC in week 1. Nobody has any film, brand new game, so you just never know. That's going to be an exciting rematch in week 14. Maybe one of the best games of the week. May get flexed to Sunday. We all know that nothing's getting flexed into Monday because Fort Worth and Alamo City continue on their tear. And speaking of the Fort Worth Toros, they dominated once again over the Portland Fleet, put up 56 points. But actually, we're gonna talk about Fort Worth's defense here. Some of these stats are just mind-boggling. The Toros have 90 points off turnovers. That's first in the league, and that was coming into this game. And then they're number 1 in the league in run defense, giving up less than 100 yards per game in a season where stopping the run has been harder than ever before. You're a Fort Worth guy, Hack, but I'll ask you to, just talk about this unit because I think they've really been the star of the show. You can see their salary cap hits and their in-game rating on the screen as well, and they've been phenomenal.
Yeah, and that's a shout out to our front office. Aaron Alexander, Marcus Dunhill, Josh Zirkle, Luis, myself, Robert Garrett Jr. We all try to honor the players that have been with us. People from the beginning. We wanted to make sure that they felt that they were taken care of in the game change. And, we didn't exactly know where we were going to go, but we knew that, we were building something special. We have really high retention rates. And so when we get a chance to, highlight some of our players, Delaney Nash, having a phenomenal season, and it's been a long time coming for him. Everybody in our locker room loves Delaney. We're always cheering for him, but whenever he can have a season where maybe the rest of the league starts looking at him, that's a really special moment for us. So some of these decisions we made in the offseason are really paying off for us. And again, another shout out to Luis for his great coaching strategy. He's growing every week, doing a really good job. Something I wanted to point out in some of these other games, Florida and some of these other teams are getting really creative with these zone blitz schemes and where they're bringing pressure, how they're bringing pressure. And I think that's attributing to some interesting stats popping up for certain positions. And I think it's a lot of fun. So I think that we're embracing those kinds of things as well. We've always liked to be a bump coverage team. We like to get in man and let our four defensive linemen up front work. And this season we've kind of stepped back some and said, okay, how can we attack in different ways? And we've really hit home with our linebackers and safeties and corners, and it's been a lot of fun.
Jerry DeGond at just over $1 million, a 100 overall rated player. That's what I would call a well-built player. Jerry is second in the league in sacks, and he has just been killing it for this Toros defense. Another team that dominated this week was Arizona. DJ Moses, who's not pictured, an SFL record 8 rushing touchdowns in a single game. He had 377 on the ground, which is a new modern-day SFL record. But I want to give love to people that don't get a lot of love, Hack, and that's this Arizona offensive line that is the best offensive line on paper in the SFL, and so far it hasn't just been on paper either. Just 2 sacks allowed. That's best in the SFL. The fewest a starting quarterback has been sacked this season, and I know that Ashley is last in the league in pass attempts, but it doesn't matter. 2 sacks in 10 games is absurd, and then they're the league's #1 rushing team in a season that where running has been sort of the star and the focal point. So they do a thing and a couple of things really well up front, and that's what's leading Arizona's charge right now. It's worth noting that Gene Benazzi and Igor Barbatov were former Nightwings who just beat up on their former team this week and hung 65 on Denver in a 65-28 win. Your thoughts on Arizona's offensive line?
Well, the first thing that really stood out to me was when I read some of these names on the list, Sean Crooked, Patrick Kelly, EJ DeQ, all guys lead that orange and black. They're Arizona people. And I think that they got, you look at their contracts and their player values, and I think that you could say that Arizona took care of them. And I think, again, that's something that I know Arizona tries to build in their culture, is the same thing we look for in Fort Worth, is longevity, tenure, and rewarding players that are loyal to your team. And it's paid dividends for them when you can establish that kind of culture. You have 5 offensive linemen. I mean, how many teams can say that they have 5? And not only that, but it's a foresight, right? They went into the season knowing that they wanted to have this build, and to come out only having 2 sacks allowed, leading the league in rushing yards. DJ Moses, all in the Discord chat all day today, all he's saying, a blind guy can get it right every once in a while, but when the front line is, when the offensive line is making these big gaps, these big holes, it makes it easy to get, the rushing record and all these touchdowns. So even DJ Moses is giving credit to his offensive line, and that's exactly what you love to see. These guys are in the trenches every week, hardly ever getting their names called, and so in a big moment, whenever the star player gives them some recognition, you love to see that.
And I mean, it's kind of one of those things that we don't really talk about a lot in the offseason. You do the free agency frenzy, and you're like, oh yeah, they signed a offensive tackle, right? And it just doesn't get the pop that some of the other things do. But it could be a difference maker in Arizona, getting over that hump, because they're playing some really good football right now, along with Fort Worth. Those are a couple teams that had total blowouts this week. Didn't have highlights, but we thought definitely deserved some further recognition, and those units have been 2 of the best units in the SFL. Back to the highlights as we go to...
moving the needle, though, before you go on, Gene Benazzi and Igor Barbatov, I was recruiting them heavily. I was very, very disappointed when Gene and Igor announced that they were going to go to Arizona. That broke my heart a little bit, but I can totally understand why. Eddie has a vision, and they bought into that. I know Gene's got ties to Hunter, and Igor and Gene kind of moved together. So that was a totally logical response. It hurt, and it didn't move the needle maybe for the league, but I know the kind of work that Gene puts in on and off the field, and he's a valuable member of the league and of Jack's data and of the Arizona Scorpions now.
All right, now to Vancouver as the Houston Headhunters taking on the Vancouver Legion, a pair of 4 and 5 teams needing a victory, and Houston needed it more than Vancouver because they don't have as good of a resume. They probably needed to win out, and they got off to a hot start as GP Wells gets loose. But there's another 21 on the other side of the field, and that is Logan Lee. Logan Lee counters back for Vancouver, and they tie the game at 7. Late in the first quarter, rather. Now Dave Burr on a rollout. He will fire into the end zone. Tiberius Bovine gets the Headhunters back in it. They were down 21-7 as Logan Lee continued to do work. Now 21-14 in the third. We're showing you a punt because there's a fumble. It was Brett Killian returning punts in this game. Hack, sometimes you put your talent back there, but sometimes you need some ball security, and Brett in an unfamiliar position coughs it up.
Yeah, and maybe you can attribute some of that to not used to having to be out there on special teams, right? Just a couple extra snaps a game can do a lot to your stamina, and I think maybe they just got caught at the wrong time there.
Dave Burr, how would they respond? DR Sim, touchdown. 21-21, Houston erases successfully a 14-point deficit here, and there's still plenty of time left in this one early in the third. Headhunters are in business. Got the ball back now offensively, and Dave Burr fires down the field to Mike St. Green. First down at midfield to move the sticks. That was his second grab of the game. End of the third quarter. Look at this. Dave Burr hit as he threw, and Josh Slapp somehow comes down with his football. I don't know how Burr got that off. One of the best passes of the week.
Yeah, and when the SFL's leading sack getter is coming down, barreling down on you like that, I mean, I heard it, on replay, oh my God, as he was trying to get rid of that ball, and that led to the duck. But yeah, somehow an amazing catch made on that one.
And Slapp punches it in. So start of the fourth quarter, Houston's up 28-24. And, hey, the Headhunters are putting in work on the road. Christian Brown down the field hits Chris Curtis with 3 minutes to go in a tie game at 31. And this was Houston's problem. This has been Houston's problem much of the season. They just haven't been able to get off the field. Logan Lee steps out of bounds there, makes it first to goal at the 1 yard line. It almost looked like a blessing in disguise for a minute for Vancouver, but it didn't matter. Logan Lee punched it in on the next play. So Houston's down 38-31 again. They felt like they were trailing this entire game, trying to come back. 4th and 10 for Dave Burr, and Dave Burr's pass is broken up by Will Stern. Vancouver holds on. They go to 5-5, and Houston falls to 4-6. More on Vancouver in a moment. But first to Las Vegas, as the Minnesota Legend were in Sin City to take on the Fury. And look, a long pass for the Vegas offense. Doug Britton didn't even know what to do with himself there at the 2 yard line. Says hi to the crowd and scores. 7-0 Vegas on top. Minnesota desperate to end their offensive woes, and that's not, well, Johnny Reno, look at that, but throws an interception. Merrick Itera, Reno just kind of got panicked there in the pocket after he was nearly sacked, threw it away. Colin Hart got it, or did he? They reviewed it. The touchdown comes off the board on 3rd and goal, so Minnesota would only get 3 points out of it. Third quarter, 13-3, no doubt about this one. Hubba Kimbrell, who's probably the best signing in terms of value this season as he gets into the end zone, makes it 20-3 Vegas. Johnny Reno got some wheels. Look at Johnny Reno move all the way into Vegas territory, and he slides nicely out of bounds to avoid the hit. Down 20, Minnesota really needed that, but they only got a field goal out of the drive. Sack on the next series, a rollout unblocked. We saw that in the Florida D.C. game. John Bond doesn't like that. But 3rd down and 16. Again, this has been Minnesota's season, Hack, because this was a chance to get off the field on 3rd and 16, and they couldn't do it. Britton moves the chains.
Yeah, and you would expect it to go to Doug Britton, too. He's their big-time playmaker, and it's just unfortunate for Minnesota. It had such high expectations, starting off the season as well as they did, and it's kind of been a downward spiral since, and just waiting for them to kind of get things figured out and get right.
Yeah, and just as they score a touchdown there, they onside kick to Doug Britton, and Doug Britton takes it all the way back to the house. Yikes. 33-13, but still, no quit in the legend. Johnny Reno finds Quag Mam for the touchdown. 39 seconds left, 33-20. Now, this onside kick was absolutely bonkers. Watch the player top right of the screen for Las Vegas. He's not looking for the ball. It hits him right in the head, and Minnesota recovers. And it's a little bit more dire than the Carolina situation because they only had 38 seconds left, but Minnesota still had hope and a fighting chance. 4th down and 1 for Johnny Reno, and Reno's pass may have gotten deflected the line, or he may have just left it short there for Jay Taylor, and that was all she wrote. 33-20, Vegas improves to 5-5. Okay, so Vegas and Vancouver, it's very interesting, Hack. We had that game on Impact on the Monday Night Spectacular earlier this season. Vancouver won 19-10. It was super defensive. Vegas played their game, but Vegas didn't have enough. Since then, these two teams have kind of been polar opposites, but all in the same because they're both 5-5. Here's a look at Las Vegas's resume right now. Okay, the Fury are 1-1 in one-score games, despite being the second best scoring defense in the SFL, 20.6 points per game. I'm not really sure how you only play 2 one-score games when you're only giving up 21 points a game. How does that happen? Vegas is just they're up one week, they're down the next week. It's been a total roller coaster for them. They host Indy this week, and they're at Arizona to finish off the season, a team they've already beaten. Vegas does still have a shot at winning the West if Arizona loses out and Vegas wins out. In fact, Hack, this is the exact scenario we saw a couple seasons ago where that was exactly the case with 2 weeks left, and Vegas beat Arizona in Week 14 and ended up winning the division. So, how do you view Vegas as the team with the number one scoring defense in the SFL? Vegas is definitely in the mix right now.
They are definitely in the mix. I mean, it's going to be that Week 14 game against Arizona is really going to say a lot about where they are, where they're going to be in this season and in the playoffs. I think they have a shot. Even if they lose to Arizona, they could probably still find their way into the playoffs. I think Indianapolis is a game that's a must-win for them, but I think it's a can-win game for them. Arizona is going to be super tough, especially coming off the performance that they just had. I know that Arizona, that is, has had some down weeks, and they're going to bring it. I mean, they know that Vegas is one of those teams that kind of has their numbers. So it's going to be one of those weeks where you can't overthink it, but I think Vegas just needs to do what they do. They have the moxie. They just can't overthink it in this series. They just need to come out and execute and do what they got to do to win the game. But it's going to take a lot more. It's going to take a lot more than Hubba Kimbrell to beat them a second time. I think they're going to have to find a way to get their passing game going and generate something, whether that's on special teams or defensively getting some kind of turnover. That's going to be paramount for them this next matchup.
Now, on the flip side, Vancouver is 5-5, but they're the total opposite of Vegas because they can't stop anyone, but no one can stop them either. 42.5 points per game is what they are averaging in their last 4 home games. But their defense, their scoring defense is 34.3 points per game. That's second to last. The worst team is Portland, who Vancouver plays next Monday night. So you got the 2 worst defenses on the Monday Night Spectacular, desperate for a win in that one. They're at Portland, and then they host Seattle, which is one of the most explosive and dynamic offenses of the league. When you contrast Vancouver with Las Vegas, who do you believe in more at this point of the season, Hack, and who do you think is more likely to make a push?
Oh, man. So I look at the Vancouver Portland. So Vancouver, I guess I got to give it to Vegas because I see Vegas realistically can go 500. I don't know. There's a scenario for Vancouver where I can realistically see them losing to Portland and Seattle. Realistically, I can see that. When I look at Vegas, Indianapolis has been playing better and they're definitely on the up right now. But I just think that the way Vegas matches up with Indy, that they should be able to win that game. And then they've shown that they can beat Arizona. So again, even if they maybe somehow mess the bed against Indianapolis, they can maybe still come out and beat Arizona. When I look at the Vancouver one, Vancouver's kind of struggling this season, maybe still there offensively, but Portland has done some stuff defensively in some games where they've looked really sharp, really crisp, and capitalized on some things. So I think that's, I'm leaning towards Vegas here.
Yeah, the Portland game is actually a rematch for Vancouver. They lost to Portland earlier this season, 54-43 in their own building. But Portland has had just some terrible defensive performances since beating Alamo City 20-19. They've kind of fallen off, which has been surprising. So those two teams are right in the thick of things, and we'll be keeping a close eye on them in the final 2 weeks of the season. San Diego went into Los Angeles this week as we get to the blowouts of the week here. And this game was actually much closer than the final score would tell you. It was 24-10 about halfway through the fourth quarter before San Diego pulled away. They double Los Angeles up on first downs. And when your average field position is your own 35-yard line, Hag, you're not having to work as hard as Los Angeles would want them to. San Diego, after putting up 69 on Vancouver the week before, goes on the road, hangs 38 on LA, and they are now 6-5. Feels like they're starting to get hot right at the right time.
Yep, and that's exactly what you want as a coaching staff. Maybe you figure things out at the right time, or maybe you've been experimenting with some stuff, and now you've kind of honed into what's working for you, right? So all that matters is where your seating is in the last week. So if you can just take care of business getting hot at the right time. There's nothing wrong with that. There's going to be some teams that slide. There's going to be some teams that go on a streak. So you want to be one of the teams on the streak going into the playoff seeding.
Los Angeles is still in this thing. We have updated playoff standings coming up at the end of the show. Moving on to Jacksonville, who trounced Queen City 41-17 to snap a 6-game losing streak. 447 yards of offense. The interesting thing about this game, Hack, was that O.J. Bruin and Kenny Slider actually split time and both played excellently. Kenny Slider got his first touchdown as a rookie in the SFL. And, Jacksonville had 2 turnovers, but Queen City didn't score anything off of them. And Jacksonville, who's been the worst third down team in the SFL this season, went 11 of 14 on third down. Maybe, just maybe, Jacksonville probably not going to make the playoffs, but it looks like they're on to something here late in the season.
Yeah, and they got into a lot of third down situations, as you can tell, 11 of 14, but they just could not be stopped. And it wasn't third and shorts. It was 3rd and 5, 3rd and 7. They were converting a lot of really, really tough third down throws. And it seemed to be a lot O.J. Bruin, right? O.J. Bruin seemed to be the guy on kind of like third downs. They needed a throw. Bruin was the guy. But Slider did a great job going out there, and they just kind of let him loose. And I thought it was really fun, especially the touchdown pass, to watch him kind of get out there and work and get an opportunity for this team. As you said, maybe not in the playoff picture, but this could be something that maybe they unleash next season, right? Something that they can, still got a couple of games to play with it, and then all of the off season. So this might be something that's they just reinvest in the quarterback spot, be cap heavy there. But if it works out for your team, then I think it's something it might be worth building around.
Yeah, I think Jacksonville's got to feel pretty good about the back half of their season. They played Baltimore really close. They played D.C. really close on the Monday Night Spectacular last week, and then they go out against an opponent that is certainly worse at this point than D.C. and Baltimore, and really puts it to them on the road at that. Tulsa hosted Sioux Falls. This was a rematch from earlier this season where Sioux Falls crushed Tulsa, and Tulsa flipped it around on them and puts up 40-21. The Tulsa Desperados improved to 4-6. That ties the Indianapolis Ramblers atop the Central. But, I think the most important thing to note for Sioux Falls in this game was they averaged 5.3 yards per pass, which is just not efficient enough in the passing game. They have not been efficient in the passing game, and they have failed to establish a run game with Jason Williams, which is kind of a shocker. Just 17 runs in this one. Tulsa was much more balanced, nearly put up 500 yards. And the Desperados, who have the better resume than the Ramblers, still have a pretty good shot at the division. What hurts them is that they lost to Indianapolis last week, and so they're going to have to overcome that head-to-head in the division to probably try and get into the playoffs. But, yeah, Sioux Falls going backwards and Tulsa moving up.
And it's a tight race there. And again, everybody in the Central Division right now is rooting for Canton there in the North, so they can hold on to their divisional berth. And so, Tulsa, as long as they can keep winning and hoping for an Indy loss, then they're doing exactly what they need to do. And I think that they really are a dark horse coming out of the Central. They have really explosive weapons in Gabriel Manning and Douglas Brown, 2 guys that can put up points in a hurry. I think JQ is going to have his work cut out for him. He's going to have to steer that correctly. And then they're just going to have to get the right defense. The defense is going to have to show up for him and try to get him through the playoffs. Maybe not having the best defense, but a defense that you can rely on while your offense goes out there and puts up points.
May not have the best defense, but that front four is pretty scary. Berto DeMora and company have been putting in work. All right, here's your updated look at the Road to the Championship presented by Zolnir heading into Week 13. You've got Fort Worth at the top, 10-0. Alamo City, 9-1. They were on a bye. Florida creeps ahead of Seattle as Seattle was on their bye. Florida on their bye this upcoming week. Baltimore has the better resume over Arizona up to this point, 462-403. Canton still sitting in there at the 7 spot at 7-4. Now firmly the North Division champion. And then San Diego for the first time this season into the top 8 as the Mavericks make their push. They are off this week, so we'll have to see what other 5-win teams get the W. There are 6 of them right now. Carolina is in 9th place, despite losing to Charleston, because Vegas is in the mix, and the only way to separate Vegas, Carolina, and Charleston is that SOV. Carolina in the 9 spot, but just barely, as Vegas's SOV is only .005 better than Charleston's right now. The Predators are in 11th, but they are surging. It's important to note for Charleston, they have already beaten 5-5 Carolina, 5-5 DC, and 5-5 Louisiana so far this season. DC and Louisiana are your 2 teams just under the line, followed by Vancouver, and then Portland, LA, Tulsa are your best shots at 6-6, winning out and making the playoffs if in fact that happens. It's important to note Portland's SOV went up in their loss to 525 as the teams they beat continued to win this week. So they still pose an extreme threat, and it's going to be interesting to see how Portland responds to their loss against Fort Worth next week on Monday night. Your thoughts on the bracket?
Yeah, not much time left. I know these teams under the line are definitely feeling the pressure. Teams on the wild card road positions, they definitely need to be doing their homework and fact checking their game plans, because these next couple of weeks are extremely critical for them. And so, again, keep an eye on that strength of victory as these weeks dwindle on. And some teams that are in a really good spot. We called out Portland. Looks like Charleston's in a great spot. Carolina can take care of business. They can probably find their way into a playoff spot. Las Vegas as well. Take care of business and you're in. Near the top 8, I mean, a lot of division winners there. So, not much going to move amongst the top 7, top 8 right now. But, still room for San Diego to move up or down a couple of points. So I think that's no real dark horses for me at the moment. I think, DC, I was really rooting for them in a lot of ways, but I think it might be a little bit too late, considering they've got Baltimore still on the schedule. So that might be rough for them. Louisiana, I know, was on a winning streak there in the middle of the season. It seems like they've kind of cooled off a little bit too. So I think we're getting a really clear playoff picture. I think the top is becoming definitely a little bit more solid. Haven't seen much movement in the top 4 or 5 in a few weeks.
Yeah, totally agree. Houston and DC have really suffered a lot of close losses this season. They're probably your snake-bitten teams for the most part. Tulsa plays Houston coming up in Week 13. That's going to be a huge game. And speaking of those huge games, here's are your Week 13 notable matchups, and there are a lot of them on the slate. In order of importance, Vancouver and Portland play next Monday. Then you got Canton 7-4 at 5-5 DC Sunday night. Huge game there. Charleston at Carolina starts Week 13. A pair of 5-5 teams. Carolina hoping to win the rematch. Indy goes to Vegas Saturday at 6:30 as Vegas will try and get above 500. Indianapolis trying to hold on there in the Central, and Tulsa playing later that evening at Houston as both those teams someone's going to get to 5-6 and keep themselves in the mix. Friday night, Fort Worth heads to LA. LA is no slouch. They have been playing some pretty great football. Sully hasn't thrown an interception in a month and a half, so seeing him against the Fort Worth defense is going to be exciting. And then Arizona on Saturday night at Minnesota. Minnesota a bit down on their luck, but Minnesota has the ability to beat anyone, and Arizona will be trying to clinch the West Division. If they get a win, they can wrap it up. They don't have to worry about the final week of the season having any kind of impact on their playoff hopes. So of the games, I know Fort Worth is interesting to you, Hack, but of the Week 13 notable matchups, which one are you going to have your eye on the most?
Charleston, Carolina is the one that's, Corbin Cup, I believe is what they call that. That'll be a great matchup. I think that's going to settle a lot of dispute between those two teams, and then I think it'll really help whoever wins that game really help their playoff chances. So I think that's probably a gold star there on that game for me. And then just want to do a little bit of trash talking, but I hope LA comes out and they throw Sully. I'd love to see Sully try to throw it 50 times. That would be great. So if you guys want to do that, try to keep his interception ratio down, then we'll see what happens when you come I guess when Fort Worth comes to LA. But yeah, I'd love to see him throw the ball and avoid Logan Jack. That would be great.
Week 13 should be very exciting. We have one game left in Week 12. That's tonight. Coming up in about 8 minutes, Atlanta and Baltimore. The Atlanta Swarm are 3-6. They've had all their byes now, and they're the last team to play their 10th game. So Atlanta, with winning out, could kind of re-enter the conversation, especially if you beat the Baltimore Vultures. But that is not going to be easy. The Vultures have been on fire, including T. Roy Gaines, who's setting records at the fullback position, even if he's been a hybrid at running back most of the season. But Baltimore at 7-3, they are hot and cooking. Mike ONeal, while on the road, had an opportunity to stop by and share with us how he thinks, or what he thinks the keys to Atlanta possibly pulling an upset tonight are. Take a listen.
So we know pretty much that Baltimore is a good team. We're going to talk about what Atlanta has to do to defend them. Look at Baltimore's outside linebacker here on the pass rush, getting to the quarterback. This was against Jacksonville a couple weeks back. So they're going to need to shore up that offensive line. Here's another example. Some of the best edge rushing you'll see all season. Pay attention to the top of the line here and look at what's happening here. Watch this edge rusher here on this play. I mean, absolute monster there on the outside. Atlanta's going to have their hands full. They're definitely going to have to show up that offensive line. But let's talk about the safeties too. Atlanta needs help in the deep third here. They're going to have to bring some of those linebackers back into the deep third. Cam, look at all of this empty space right here. Look at that. 8 yards right there. They're going to have some of those linebackers dropped into coverage to defend Jack Wigmore. Just a couple keys that you need there for Atlanta to get the victory tonight. We're going to send it back to you guys in the booth. Thanks again.
Thank you, Mike. And, you know, it's great points from ONeal because Bryant Dynasty's been sacked 19 times this season. That's 27th worst, basically at the bottom of the league right now. And so Atlanta cannot give that up. Here's where Atlanta may have some hope tonight in a mismatch on paper here, Stephen, is they're 9th in yards per carry allowed. Their run defense has actually been pretty okay this season. In fact, better than pretty okay. They've been pretty great. So, you know, how do you see Atlanta's hopes and opportunities in trying to get a monumental upset here on the road?
You know, I don't look so much at the offense when it comes to this game for Atlanta. I would look towards the defense. I think that's where the challenge is, and it's, you know, the passing game really worries me. You know, you said it, 9th in yards per carry allowed defensively, but I think it's going to be a little bit of the passing game. So if King Henry can show up, if some of these defensive backs, Chris Henry can show up, these guys for the Swarm secondary, I think that's going to be a big key component for them, is getting some turnovers and then utilizing their good run defense to, flip the field and give their offense a great opportunity. You know, their offense has some really good weapons, but I think it's going to start with defense tonight, keeping Baltimore out of the end zone. If they can get them to settle for field goals, I think that'll be huge for the Swarm and their chances to get a win.
You know, the odds that you are not going to be in a lot of third downs against Baltimore are pretty slim. Atlanta has only converted 42 third downs this season. That's less than 5 per game, and that's last in the league. You're probably going to have to convert 7, 8 third downs, maybe more, against Baltimore because they're going to make you work for it. I think Atlanta's third down package needs to be great, which means that you want to be in third and short situations. BDG Hollywood's got to get rolling. Baltimore's run defense is kind of a weak spot if they have a weak spot on this team. And, it could be time or a necessity for BDG Hollywood to have a great night. Well, that's a look at week 12 around the SFL. Your final thoughts, Hack, before we hit the final game of the weekend.
Great work by Mike ONeal, and wanted to shout out Axis Live, which will be on tonight on Twitch after tonight's game. If you haven't already, make sure you go into the Discord and you react to the Axis post from earlier. It gets you a chance to win a mug featuring one of the best mugs in the SFL, Mr. Mike ONeal. So make sure you get in on that giveaway. I think they close it before kickoff of the game, so you got just a couple more minutes. I'm trying to prolong this so you have time to get over to the Discord and get it done. Make sure you enter the giveaway, and then tune in tonight on Twitch to Axis Live. It's a great time, great show. And after that, always fun being here. Thanks for having me, Cam, and let's go watch this game.
All right, thank you, Hack. Thank you to everybody out there in SFL Nation. We have a 3-man booth tonight. Tyler Falk, Chris Curtis, and myself will be on the call. You won't want to miss that. All that energy and all that excitement is, who knows, maybe Atlanta pulls off another victory. Florida already lost to Atlanta this season. Maybe Baltimore is next up, but the Vultures are on fire. For Stephen Hacker, I'm Cameron Irvine. This has been This Week in the SFL. We'll see you next week.